investigation is just getting going. We hear the president say DEI policies may have contributed to this. What's your reaction to what we just heard in that press conference?
Bluntly, I think there's no foundation in fact for a statement like that. One thing that has to be remembered is that there are standards for everyone in aviation, notably in a safety critical position, be it pilots, be it flight attendants, be it dispatchers, be it air traffic controllers. So the standards have never changed. And to allege that somehow these pilots were substandard or the controllers were substandard without any evidence of that, I think is at the minimum, it's very premature and it's without foundation of fact. It is contrary to everything that worldwide accident investigation protocols and processes demand. We look for objective information and we look to determine facts. And that allegation of some reference to DEI does not have at this point any facts underneath it to support such a statement.
Yamiche, you were listening in. You have covered Washington for many, many years. As you were listening, do we know what the president was trying to accomplish and what stood out to you?
Well, it was striking. The president started off by being a consoler in chief, talking about the fact that he wanted to take a moment of silence for these families whose loved ones, as you said, are still being pulled from the Potomac River as we speak. But then he made a hard pivot, and that hard pivot was to attacking Democrats, attacking diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, attacking former President Obama and former President Biden, as well as the former Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. And I think it really it's striking that President Trump said that the way that he came to the idea that diversity had something to do with this was because he has, quote, common sense. He was asked directly, do you have any evidence that shows that diversity programs led to this crash or contributed in any way? And he didn't give any evidence. All he said was that common sense led him to believe this. Now, we know that the president, when he was campaigning, as well as this first few weeks of his presidency, that he's made attacking diversity, equity, inclusion programs a key part of his administration, and it made it a key part of his campaign. But I think in this moment, there's still a lot of questions of why he came to that, even though he's saying it's because of common sense. So I think there are a lot of people that I'm now in touch with who are frankly very surprised that the president went there, that the president talked about this. We still don't know very much about why this crash happened or the sort of identities of the pilots here. So I think it just begs the question that there are a lot of questions that need to be answered here. And President Trump, frankly, a lot of people are seeing that he wasn't giving a lot of answers. In fact, he was just sort of going back to the things that he's gone to, culture war issues, diversity issues, and in a moment where I think a lot of the nation was waiting for him to give more concrete answers, Anna.
Chris, you're there at the river. What can you tell us about the recovery efforts and what's happening right now as far as multiple agencies all trying to coordinate a response?
And it is multiple agencies, and the divers are in the water. That's the latest we heard, Anna. And in fact, one official said that this is the largest recovery effort of its kind that they have seen in decades in the Washington, D.C. area. And to say that it has been challenging over the last 15 hours would be to understate it. But obviously they have a goal and they have a determination to recover all 67 bodies. We learned earlier today that from that plane, they have recovered 27 of the 64 people, and on the helicopter, one of the 3 people. But it all started last night when an alert call came in at 8:48 p.m. They realized very quickly that out on the waters of the Potomac, there had indeed been a crash. And you can see I'm just across the street from, first of all, where you see that white building. That is D.C. National Airport. And then beyond that is the Potomac. It is over there where the crash occurred. What divers found last night, among the 300 emergency responders, ice. There have been a series of very cold days here in Washington, D.C., so the waters were icy. The water itself was very cold. dealing with that would have been enough, but gusty winds and, of course, pitch black at that time of night. But they have been in the water all night long since then, trying to do recovery. In addition to that, today, they have already set up a recovery center to receive the remains of the bodies that have been found. Boats and ambulances were seen arriving on the scene. There are red tents that are set up, kind of a temporary morgue. Both the medical examiner from the state of Virginia as well as the Army medical examiner are on scene, but no full manifest has been released yet with all the names of the people who have died. But you mentioned this at the top, Anna, that among those who were on board were members of the figure skating, USA figure skating. There had been the national championships in Wichita, followed by a training program. It's a very prestigious thing for a young skater to be involved as a young person in this training program. They were there, many with their parents, some with their coaches. The tragedy, compounding tragedy, I can tell you, while there is mourning for all 67 of the people on board, the skating community is a very close one. They lead lives that are unique, going to the skating rink with mom or dad at 5 o'clock in the morning, traveling the world sometimes for competitions. Yes, competitors, but also friends, because they're in a situation that very few people their age can know. And I've spoken to someone inside the figure skating community, and not surprisingly, the devastation is being felt in a very, very deep way. There were very young people on board. In fact, the Boston Figure Skating Club did hold a press conference this morning and say that they had members on board that who were teenagers. So as we wait for the manifest, we also wait to see what is happening in the cold and icy waters of the Potomac as those divers continue their very difficult and emotionally challenging work. Anna.
Chris Jansing, thank you for reporting again live from the Potomac River. And we see these images next to you of what appears to be parts of the plane sticking out from the water. We were told earlier at the 7:30 press conference that the plane had broken into three pieces, was inverted in the water. Again, the water's frigid cold. There's ice there as well. So there's the recovery operation. And then, of course, there's the investigation into what went wrong. Les Aben, they have not yet recovered, as far as we know, the black boxes from that aircraft at this point. We all by now have probably seen the video that was captured from afar of the plane trying to land and then the fireball that ultimately is a result of this crash. I'm wondering what you're hoping to learn when they do get a hold of those black boxes.
Well, let me say this hits close to home for me. 43 years ago, I was there the day after Air Florida crashed this month, actually 43 years ago. So seeing airplane pieces in the water is something, that stays with you forever. But in answer to your question, Anna, as soon as this becomes they stop with the search and recovery effort, that the first thing they're going to address is getting to that cockpit or to the tail of the airplane to recover those cockpit voice recorders and that digital flight data recorders. And we're going to find out what happens. I do want to address and echo, in a way, Captain Cox that was on just a little bit earlier, is that one of the most qualified and highly skilled controllers we have are at Washington. They are amazing people. It is challenging for pilots. It is challenging for controllers to keep up with the traffic that's there. But hopefully we'll find out where this mistake was made. Remember, we're adding in a recipe, into the recipe, nighttime operation that all these lights become light pollution. So finding a helicopter for this particular airline crew that's been focusing for 80 miles out, that's when the arrival about starts, 80 miles out on a very challenging type of approach that they have to have their attention to see those lights of a helicopter within all the other lights. We know how congested DC is. It's a challenging situation. So we may find the answer somehow through all of the data that we get.